And Jack Criss is here. Is it true you never voted before? You didn't want to vote? Why not?
I voted once or twice.
Yeah,
you know,
but still.
If I felt the desire, but we're jumping right into it.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
There's a column that has generated a lot of controversy when I wrote it originally, and it's included in Ready, Aim, Right, and it's entitled "Why I Usually Don't Vote." Mm-hmm. And I maintain that there's almost a frenzy to get people to vote, regardless of the candidates involved. It's almost as if you have to vote. And of course, the usual rationale for that is if you don't vote, you can't complain. As I say in my column, well, as long as I'm taxed, I will complain. You know, if I can't find a candidate that I can't support wholeheartedly, I think the lesser of evils is still evil. Mm-hmm. But I have to say, in the recent election, somebody said, you know, you could say about this election that the evil of two lessers is still evil. So.
How did you feel about the, naturally we are taping this even shortly after the election is over. What did you feel about the conclusion of the election? What's going to happen in 2005 and beyond?
You know, there is definitely a polarization. I don't think it's quite as pronounced as the pundits would have us believe, because even though there are red states and blue states, you still have a lot of people who voted for the opposite candidate in each state where one particular candidate won. But I do think in certain moral issues, certainly with the war, there is becoming a fissure. How we're going to close that, I don't know. I honestly don't know. I've got some suggestions in this book. Certainly this book came out before the election, and I'm not explicit about this election in the book. I think, Gene, we need to return to some values, a much bandied about term that we had once upon a time in our country and that we've lost, that we've subsequently lost over the ensuing 200 and some odd years.
And how did you come to those values?
You know, I'm an autodidact. I never graduated college. I'm self-taught. I started reading people when I was young, like Ayn Rand, Voltaire, John Locke, Thomas Jefferson was always a hero. And these people embody the values that this country was founded on. And I don't necessarily mean religious values. I mean individual rights, a minimal government, self-sovereignty. We've gotten away from that. Both parties actually want to control the individual to a certain extent. Traditionally, liberals and Democrats want to control more of the economy. Conservatives, especially those of the religious right, want to control what we see or do in the privacy of our own homes. The classical liberal view encapsulated is free minds, free markets.
Right.
As long as I'm not harming you, Gene Edwards, or anyone else, I should be free to do what I wish, even if it harms myself. That's irrational behavior, but it shouldn't be illegal behavior.
And it took you how long to come to all these positions?
Well, as I mentioned in the book, I started off as a young man. I was a socialist, a Marxist.
Yeah.
You know, I was reading Allen Ginsberg and Jack Kerouac, and I read Atlas Shrugged by Ayn Rand. And that one book put me on the path, if you will, toward rationality and reason. I consider myself a child of the Enlightenment. And in this book, I am trying to bring back the values of classical liberalism. You know, it used to be the term liberal meant you were for individual rights and you wanted less government. Around the turn of the century, in the 20th century, there was a shift, and liberal became synonymous with more government control. And to be a conservative meant you wanted more church control, more control, but on a localized state level, whereas the classical liberal view is let's get less control.
What's wrong with our country today? Is it talk radio that's wrong with our...
No.
No?
No, I think talk radio is good.
Is it the liberal media?
No.
Is it, no?
No, even though I will say that the media is certainly slanted. And I'm not a member of a political party. I tend to vote a certain way, but I have voted for both candidates. I don't think any objective person who's intelligent can say that the New York Times is not biased. I do think Bush took some extraordinary hits from the Times, from Viacom-owned news outlets, and it was obvious to me. But no, it's not the media. I think we have to go back and look at what is being taught in our universities. The problems that exist in this country are being conveyed or propagated in teaching methods, and in teaching what is being taught. That's why I maintain that philosophy can change the culture. Philosophy is what drives men, it's what drives politics, it's what drives law. So, for example, to me it's futile to talk about term limits, because even if you replace someone with bad ideas, you're not replacing the bad ideas.
Yeah.
So
But you've got to be motivated to study the philosophy, and that motivation has to start somewhere.
It does, and I'm not optimistic long term. I tend to look at things historically. The Enlightenment took centuries to take fruition and to take root as the United States of America. You know, the first country founded explicitly on ideology, and it's going to take maybe 100, 200 years for us to come around to another Enlightenment. We certainly are not there now.
You are also the publisher of the Metro Jackson Chronicle, which is the business paper here in the Jackson
Metro
area.
Business Chronicle. Right.
What's your opinion of the state of Jackson these days? Is that convention center going to be the thing that turns the downtown around?
You know, I have been asked that so often, and I hope it is. Normally, I'm a little bit wary of any project that is reliant upon tax revenue. To me, if the project is worthy and worthwhile, usually private investment will come in and take care of that. Because if there's money to be made, private money will invest.
Right.
You know, but you know, the election's taken place. The people have spoken. So I hope it does do well. But we'll see. I think some of the numbers were greatly exaggerated.
Do you?
Yeah, I do. I don't
Some
see
of the forecasts on what could happen?
Sure, I don't think it's possible that 700 new jobs will emerge from this one center. And when you look at similar or comparable sized cities to Jackson, say Baton Rouge, for example, their convention center has been a dismal failure. I don't wish that on Jackson, but I wonder if we didn't rush into this thing a little bit too fast.
You talked earlier about the polarization that's going on, and we are facing a legislative session that's likely to be polarized again. Is there any way out of that? Can the governor and the representatives, House of Representatives, ever be friends? Can they ever work together?
Sure, they can work together, but I almost get worried when they do work together. Because when the Republicans and Democrats get on the same page, somebody's going to pay for it, and it's usually you and me, private taxpayer. And again, I think that we can talk about political minutia all day. Not that it's not important, but I'm going to go back to the underlying philosophies of these men and women in the House of Representatives, in the Senate, Governor Barbour. I want to know, and I think it's crucial for us to know what their philosophy is, what they believe are the ultimate goods and truths. And that's going to change the culture and change Mississippi politics. And so frankly, I don't, really, Gene, I don't concern myself as much now with the day-to-day politics as I used to. At one time I was a political junkie, but now I find myself studying more the motives and the reasoning or lack thereof behind decisions rather than the actual decisions themselves. So I'm not dodging your question, but you know, who knows? Today it's one bill, next week it'll be another bill, and we go back and forth until the philosophy is changed.